Chapter 90, Flashback 5 May, Interlude, Tony. Tony watched Thor and Loki vanish from Central Park in what he was pretty sure was a flare of Cherenkov light, which had some unsettling implications, but presumably the Asgardians knew what they were doing. But with that, the story of the Avengers' first team-up was over. It had only taken trashing two suits, his own alleged government trying to literally nuke the city, and oh yes, nearly dying in the cold vacuum of space. To do it something, he was steadfastly trying not to think about lest he do something he'd regret. It was too bad Rhodey couldn't make it. He'd finally wrapped up his mission and flown all the way back from Hong Kong for the battle, only to end up crashing their shawarma lunch. But he was going to be stuck in debriefings all day with the Air Force brass. One more reason to stay independent, Tony thought. With the handoff made, they went their separate ways. Rogers shook Tony's hand and took off on his motorcycle. Tony grudgingly admitted he looked cool on it. Romanoff gave Bruce his luggage. She and Barton were heading back to S.H.I.E.L.D. and taking the Secret Service knockoffs, guarding the plaza with them. Tony would give Bruce a lift in his new supercar and would hopefully convince him to check out the tower. And that would have been it, except that Barton approached him. "Do you mind waiting up a few minutes?" he asked Banner. "It's fine," Banner said, leaning against the car. "Thanks." Barton waved back at Romanoff and gave him a serious nod. She clearly knew what was up. Then, for the first time since he'd arrived, he took off his sunglasses and said, "Mr. Stark, I was hoping we could talk." "Is there a problem?" Tony asked. No problem. I thought you might want to clear the air," he said. Tony shook his head and patted him on the shoulder. "Hey, you tag-teamed Loki with the rest of us. As far as I'm concerned, you're good." "Still, I thought it would be good to get it out in the open," he repeated, and this time he tilted his head to point down the path away from the plaza. So there was something else. Immediately more alert, Tony said as casually as he could, "Ah, yeah, sure." The two of them started down the path, away from the other agents who were sure to be eavesdropping. Tony didn't know what he was expecting. Maybe Barton had some dirt on Fury that he'd missed, or something on Loki that he didn't want S.H.I.E.L.D. to know. But when he opened his mouth, it wasn't about any of that. "Natasha told me you have a kid." Tony blinked in surprise. "What is that all?" he said. "That's not exactly a secret on the team. I just don't want the public to know yet." "Still, it's good to keep things like that quiet," Barton insisted. "Do you mind if I ask?" Oh, that was his game. "Depends. Is Fury gonna hear about it?" Tony asked. "No way," he said emphatically. "I don't mess around with family. I'm sure Fury's gonna start digging, but he won't hear anything from me." "Yeah, well, Fury digging things up is gonna be bad enough. He might surprise you, Tony. There's still a lot about Fury you don't know, and I don't just mean the spy stuff. But even so, he can do it on his own time." Tony crossed his arms, watching the park-goers walking in the distance. "Harley, that's her name," he said. "She's 11. Nice name. Is her mother in the picture?" Tony glanced back at him. "Rogers didn't tell you. No, she died years ago. The stepfather, too, and I never heard a word after the one night until last fall." "That must be hard for her," Barton said sympathetically. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "I could tell, reading her first letter. You know she addressed it Anthony Stark." "Really? Aha. How many Anthony Starks are there anyway? Enough to balance out the number of women I've slept with." "So, a lot. I'm not even the only one in this city, but yeah, Harley hasn't had a great life." "She deserves a break," Barton nodded. "Well, I think she's got a big one coming," he said. "So how are you taking it?" I think the sequence was freak out about telling Pepper, prepare, get to know her as well as I can through letters, debate whether to draw attention to her by flying to her school in my suit, freak out some more, and right now." Tony fixed him with a hard expression. "I'm also resisting the urge to hunt down the World Stupidity Council and shoot them in their self-righteous faces." Barton let out a sound that was close to a snarl. "Yeah, I'm feeling that too. I at least had Loki to take it out on, but I'd say it's a good thing they only talk to us by video link good for them. That is." They commiserated in their shared antipathy for a minute before Tony collected himself. You know, I didn't even really want to join the Avengers before this no offense, he said. I was just annoyed Fury didn't think I was suitable. Iron Man, solo superhero, was working great for me. But now, alien invasion's a thing. The Chitauri won't be the last. The world's going to need yous, and you know what? We've got a good thing going now, too. Except I'm the only one the team with a kid. You're not. Barton cut him off so fast that he barely registered it. But then Tony turned to face him in shock, already doing the math, just to be sure. Rogers and Banner didn't have kids. He couldn't rule out Thor, but it didn't sound like it, and for Romanoff, he'd be very surprised if a pregnancy fit anywhere in her timeline. You, he said. Barton nodded. 2 of them, 9 and 7. Tony stared in disbelief. Finally, he said, okay, how did that happen? I mean, I'm not Fury, but Jarvis would have flagged something like that in the S.H.I.E.L.D. files. But he just smirked and shook his head. They're not in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files. Fury scrubbed everything when we got married. The house is off the grid, too, and my travel records are fakes. Even Jarvis would have a hard time finding Usnat, and he'll know. So did Coulson. But as far as I know, no one else does more than suspect. And Fury respects family. I told you he could surprise you. I don't even know if I'm the only one. He might have pulled rank on my behalf specifically, but I haven't gone looking. Tony considered that. While it would be interesting to know how far Fury was willing to go for his agents as an intellectual matter, this was one time he could admit it really wasn't his place. Yeah, that's fair, he said. So, 2 kids, Cooper and Leela. How do you do it? He asked, thinking of everything Barton had been through in the past few days. Barton just shrugged. How does any soldier do it? He asked. You get into the business before you have the sense to think twice about it, and then you keep doing it because the world's in danger, and you're the one who needs to save it. Damn, I was hoping there was some secret handbook I missed. Ha, there's never been one of those. You just have to wing it, and if you mess up sometimes and you will do your best to fix it, so you're bringing her here for the summer, probably Malibu. Well, if you have some free time and can do it quietly, I can introduce her to Minind. Listen, Tony. Barton patted him on the shoulder. I Fury, Shield, we all owe you a lot. If there's anything you need, paperwork snafus to sort out, greedy relatives looking for a payday, just give us a call. Tony gave him smirk. Thanks, but Pepper's got it covered. Next month I'll meet her when she comes home from boarding school. We'll do the official DNA test, sign the papers, and we can have a normal summer. Normal for you, you mean? Still, if there's any problems, you know where to find us. He offered his hand. Tony shook it, and they turned and started back towards the plaza. But they'd only gone a few yards when Barton stopped cold. Hold on, he said. Tony back turned around to face him. What? If you're not doing the official test till next month, that means I can still win the betting pool. Chapter 91. Flashback 5 May Roman 2. Logs from Stark Tower Laboratory. Audio-video logs from Stark Tower, Mr. Stark's personal laboratory on floor 85, Saturday, May 5, 2012, evening. Mr. Stark is standing at a work table, working on edits to a new suit design. Lt. Carl Rhodes enters the room. Lt. Carl Rhodes, Tony. Mr. Stark briefly looks up from his work. Mr. Stark, Rhodey, good to see you. You finally escaped the debriefs. Lt. Carl Rhodes, I'm done with the debriefs, at least until the investigation's over. You got any coffee on? Debrief Sanjet lag is a bitch, not to mention reading up on all the mess you got into yesterday. Mr. Stark points to the corner of the lab. Mr. Stark, I think there's still half a part sitting out. You might need to warm it up. And what's this about an investigation? Weren't you finally going to catch the people behind that bioterror plot? Lt. Carl Rhodes approaches the coffee maker and turns on the hot plate. Lt. Carl Rhodes, heavy sigh. It was a trap. Mr. Stark looks up in surprise, putting his full attention on Lt. Carl Rhodes. Mr. Stark, a trap. Lt. Carl Rhodes, they set us up. Even the hostages were ringers. Maybeth virus was real. I blasted it before they could use it. Beauty was the real target all along Maybower. They still called me Iron Man. Mr. Stark, damn, what happened? LT Carl Rhodes, they had a hammer tech tank. Worse, it was a Dard prototype that was stolen a couple years ago. And say what you want about Hammer, but it was tough enough to go toe-to-toe with your armor. Mr. Stark, skeptical. Come on, fly boy. I've taken on tanks before. If it was Hammer tech, it should have been twice as easy. LT Carl Rhodes, the Hammer tech was the problem. They put a miniature nuclear reactor inside it. I had to disable its weapons without cracking the hull, or it would have irradiated half of Hong Kong. Mr. Stark comes out from behind the work table and approaches LT Carl Rhodes. Mr. Stark, okay, that sounds a little more hard mode. What did you do? LT Carl Rhodes, I managed to get underneath it. I was gonna fly it out to the Navy base, but then they activated the self-destruct because Afkorsethi did, and I had to ditch it in the harbor, and that's when I came back and tried to catch up with you. Sorry about that. Mr. Stark, it sounds like you did your best. Did you get anything from the prisoners? LT Carl Rhodes, same as usual. Lots of slogans, no real intel. In fact, I'm starting to wonder if even the slogans are really, out in the field, you get true believers and people who are just in it for power. And this has the fingerprints of someone who's in it for power all over it. The only trouble is, they don't fit any of the major players. They're running dark like nothing I've ever heard of. But whoever they are, they've got reach. They even had some of the old Stark tech that Stain was selling. Mr. Stark gives LT Carl Rhodes a sharp look. Mr. Stark, nothing newer. LT Carl Rhodes, no, nothing newer. Mr. Stark, seriously. Well, still, if there's anything I can do to help, it looks like I've got a few more scores to settle there. LT Carl Rhodes, for now, just fix up my suit. Air Force'll probably call you about that on Monday anyway. LT Carl Rhodes picks up the part from the hot plate and pours a cup of coffee. He takes a sip, visibly savoring it. LT Carl Rhodes, solitary alien invasion. Mr. Stark, threats not of this world, my friend. While you took on a very terrestrial and very deadly terrorist organization determined to steal our tech and use it against us, yesterday showed me I need to be prepared for a wide range of situations opponents environments. LT Carl Rhodes. Let me guess. A new suit. Mr. Stark, you're thinking too small. Iron Man's not enough. Not even with a war machine watching his back. For what's coming, we're gonna need an Iron Legion. Mr. Stark returns to the work table and swipes through the blueprints on the holo projector to display the preliminary design for the Mark Roman 12. The first design intended for the Iron Legion, as opposed to trying different iterations on the Mark Roman 7 platform. LT Carl Rhodes studies it for 6 seconds, then stares at Mr. Stark's face for a further 4 seconds. LT Carl Rhodes, tones, when was the last time you slept? Mr. Stark, come on, Rhodey Jarvis. Mr. Stark has slept an estimated 8 hours and 20 minutes in total over the past 3 nights. Mr. Stark, annoyed. Yeah, well, for once it wasn't for lack of trying. LT Carl Rhodes, hey, I get it. I've seen soldiers break down over a lot less. Mr. Stark, angrily, note a soldier. Pause. No offense. I've just seen too many things go wrong with people following Fury's marching orders. Phil died. A lot of people in New York died. Barton got mind-controlled. He would have been mind-controlled if it weren't for this. Mr. Stark taps the arc reactor in his chest. Mr. Stark. And then I got dragged through a wormhole to the ass end of the universe by a nuclear missile that Fury's boss sent. Mr. Stark leans against the work table, visibly trembling. LT Carl Rhodes approaches him and places an arm across his shoulders. LT Carl Rhodes, have you talked to Holly yet? Mr. Stark shakes his head. Mr. Stark, letters, remember. I sent her one last night telling her I'm still alive, but the mail service is slow. LT Carl Rhodes, won't she find that out from the news? Even without technology, Mr. Stark, I'm sure she will eventually. But if she finds out in bits and pieces through letters her friends Getty don't want her to panic, and it'd probably already be too late for that. Pause. And she'd have good reason to. When I updated my will, I made Pepper her trustee, and she'd still be eligible for citizenship. But custody would have to be fought in court unless Pepper convinced her relatives to give it up. And for my kind of money, that wouldn't be easy. Lt. Carl Rhodes, cautiously, besides worrying about her dad. Mr. Stark pounds his fist on the work table and pulls away from Lt. Carl Rhodes, circling to the other side of the table. Mr. Stark, yes, obviously, but it's not just that. You didn't see her first letters to me. She offered to pay Merrent with money, I mean. And Jarvis, pull up the file on the Durlsey family. The work table's hollow projector displays the various documents and articles collected regarding the Dursley family. Lt. Carl Rhodes, you've mentioned them before, Mr. Stark. They've been in the newspaper a few times. Even their son has. He's Harley's age. But there's not a single photograph of them with Harley, and not a single article mentions her living with them or being related to them. Ange told me she didn't even know what her mother looked like. What does that tell you? Lt. Carl Rhodes remains silent, but he glares with increasing hostility at the display. After 11 seconds, he looks back up at Mr. Stark. Lt. Carl Rhodes, didn't you already buy her uncle's company? That's some leverage if it came to it. Mr. Stark, actually, I told Rogers to shoot them. Lt. Carl Rhodes coughs, then laughs uncomfortably. Lt. Carl Rhodes, of course you did. Mr. Stark, I think he might have done it too, but it still wouldn't help the fact that I almost wasn't there when she needed me. Lt. Carl Rhodes, you were kind of busy saving the world. Mr. Stark swipes away the holographic display. Mr. Stark, angrily, we were don't saving the world. I was saving the city from our own people. We had the situation under control, but those NATO wannabe assholes wouldn't listen. I almost never even got to meet my daughter because they went and decided to fire Anukit Midtown. Pause. Deep breath. Look, if I had to choose, I'd do it again. World needs saving, city needs saving, someone's gotta do it right. But that won't get Holly away from her aunt and uncle. And in just another couple months, I'll have custody free and clear. Right now of all times, she doesn't need another damn person toady for her. She needs someone Tolliver for her for once. Lt. Carl Rhodes, wait, another person die for her, Mr. Stark abruptly snaps out of his rant with a concerned expression. Mr. Stark, pause. Look, I can't tell you the full story, and yes, I know that's me saying that. But the short version is that firebombing where Harley's mother died, it wasn't just a firebombing. First of all, Harley was there. She doesn't remember it, but it was when she got that scar on her forehead. And second, if I understand what happened, her mom and stepdad both died protecting her from a terrorist who came after all of them personally. Which is good. I'm grateful. But with where she ended up, something definitely went wrong after that. Lt. Carl Rhodes, concerned. Tony, is this something the government needs to know, or already knows? Mr. Stark, number and probably not. I checked. There's no connection to any of the current threats. Lt. Carl Rhodes, fine. I'll take your word for that. Pause. So, since you're Rennet dead, and also in serious need of sleep, what are you going to do now? Mr. Stark, well, my first priority is this. Mr. Stark brings up the schematics of the Mark Roman 8 on the holographic display. Lt. Carl Rhodes, aha. I called it, it's a new suit. Mr. Stark, reluctantly, it's a new suit. But this time you can blame Jarvis. Lt. Carl Rhodes, Jarvis. Mr. Stark's experiences in the battle have caused me to raise several failure modes in priority. A more efficient startup sequence and new emergency protocols would have avoided several of near-fatal incidents that occurred yesterday. Mr. Stark, I could fix the Mark Roman 7, it still basically works. But it wasn't finished to begin with, and Jay was pretty insistent that I should move on. Besides, now that I have proof of concept that the one-piece deployment works, I can make it adaptable to the environment. Jarvis, what Mr. Stark means is that manual propulsion should be available before full boot-up if the current environment is falling. Mr. Stark, annoyed. Thank you, Jarvis. Lt. Carl Rhodes swipes away the projection. Lt. Carl Rhodes, seriously, Tones. Are you gonna be okay here, Mr. Stark? Probably, eventually. I'll feel a lot better when Holly's home and all the paperwork's finished. LT Carl Rhodes, I'm sure well, look, I've got some relief saved up now. Mandatory downtime after that last campaign. In fact, feel free to take your time fixing my suit. If you need me for anything this summer, just gimme a call. Mr. Stark. Pause. Will do. Thanks, Rhodey. Chapter 92. Flashback 9 May. Interlude. Hedwig. Hedwig cleared the last mountain and relaxed fractionally as she glided her way down towards the castle in the distance, her goal finally in sight. This had easily been the hardest journey of her life, but she had a duty to her human, and she was going to fulfill it. Not just any owl could have made the trip from New York to Scotland in only 4.5 days. A school owl wouldn't be this dedicated, at least not unless an actual staff member told them to rush it. The owl post office reserved only its fittest owls for these kinds of tasks and rotated them after each delivery. An owl who didn't have a good relationship with their human would just play dumb and not bother. And a non-magical owl probably couldn't make the trip this fast, even if they had a thistral on their tail. But Hedwig took pride in her work. And Hedwig also had a very caring and considerate human, one who didn't make difficult demands lightly, who always waited patiently for her to return, and who made sure she was healthy and clean between deliveries. Holly had absolutely earned Hedwig's loyalty. Likewise, her father at least respected her and made an effort to provide for her when she visited. And she, Hedwig, knew from seeing it First Wing how scary the incident in the human city had been. She had personally clawed Loki in the face, after all. She understood, even if she didn't have the means to articulate it, that Holly would need reassurance as soon as possible, and so she was giving this one her all. And even then, to make the journey this fast required planning. Though she didn't know the names of lands she passed over, Hedwig had made this trip many times, and she knew the landmarks well. And it was that knowledge that allowed her to plan her route so efficiently. On a delivery of this urgency, her normal sleep schedule was discarded. Though she was from a preferentially diurnal species, she was sent out at night, and she didn't waste that time. In fact, she didn't keep to a regular 24-hour cycle at all, although her flights wound up being roughly along those lines. Instead, she just pulled shifts, one after the other, flying as far as she safely could at a stretch before stopping to rest. She religiously stuck to 8-hour breaks between shifts, just long enough to sleep. But she also arranged to always end a shift when she reached a large body of water. The key was to always keep a long overwater stretch to the start of a shift, in case her strength failed her unexpectedly later in the day. For food, she went for fishing boats or other food the humans left out. It wasn't the most dignified diet for a natural hunter, but it was fast. Luckily, she was able to make the voyage without losing a day. Her first shift brought her to the shores of the land the humans called New Brunswick, her second to Labrador, her third to Greenland, and her fourth to Iceland. It was in the morning at the end of her fifth shift, bypassing her usual stop in the Faroe Islands entirely, that the Scottish coast came into view. From there, it was only a short flight more before she reached the familiar towers of Hogwarts Castle. Gliding through the upper windows, she swooped down to land, more or less, in front of her very surprised human, and finally delivered her letter. And she washed on. It would have taken another Raelian invasion to get her to go out again today. Luckily, Holly's friend had a nice, protein-rich breakfast sitting out. Chapter 93, 13 May, Holly's Diary. From the diary of Holly Potter, 13 May or maybe 14 May, I don't know what time it is anymore. I don't know how it went so wrong. We got caught last night when we gave Norbert to Charlie's friends. We didn't get caught with Norbert. That would have been even worse, but it was still worse than I imagined. We lost 150 points, 50 points each. Neville was there too, and he got caught up in it, and he didn't even do anything. He was trying to warn us even, because he'd overheard Malfoy. I wanted to tell him what happened, but I couldn't in front of McGonagall. It had to be horrible for him, and it was all my fault. I left my invisibility cloak at the top of the astronomy tower. I can't believe I was that stupid. It came from my stepdad. I shouldn't have just left it behind like that. I don't know how it happened, but Filch was waiting for us right when we got to the bottom of the tower. And McGonagall was awful. She said she was disgusted with us, and she'd never heard of anything like it before. 50 points each. And detention, but that's not the main thing. I've got detention for things I didn't do before thanks to Dudley. Even for things I did with the accidental magic. It must have been a lot worse for Hermione. I'm sure she's never got a detention before, or Neville, I guess, since he was homeschooled. I'm writing this in bed now by wandlight, and I can still hear Hermione crying. She was a lot worse last night. She was sobbing for hours, and I think she only stopped when she was tired out and fell asleep. I'm surprised she didn't wake the other girls. Tonight Lavender threw a pillow at her and told her to shut up. She asked me how I managed it, but I've just learnt how to cry quietly. I wasn't any better. I didn't sleep at all last night, and I still can't sleep properly now even though I'm wiped out. I thought about writing then, but I was just too out of it to write anything. Maybe this'll help now. I bet Neville was just as bad, but I don't know. Ron's still in the hospital wing, and Dean and Seamus aren't talking to me. Everyone in Gryffindor hates us now, because we lost our chance at the House Cup. Even the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws hate us, because they want to see Slytherin lose the cup too, and the bloody Slytherins keep clapping when I walk by. I wanted to slap Malfoy, but that would have just got me in more trouble. I don't know what Hess are happy about. He got detention too trying to catch us, but he only lost 20 points, which is completely unfair of McGonagall. She's usually fairer than that. It's been terrible. No one would sit with me and Hermione at meals today, not even Neville. I'm sure he blames us. The only person who wasn't mad was Ron, except he was mad at himself. He's the one who let Malfoy see Charlie's letter, so it's kind of his fault too. But he tried to put a brave face on. He said Fred and George lose loads of points, and people still like them. But they've never lost 150 in one go, have they? And Fred and George wouldn't talk to us either, and I overheard Fred say, if you're gonna lose that many points at once, you'd better have something big to show for it. I don't know what to do. I can offer to Wood to leave the Quidditch team if he's mad too. I don't want to, but if no one else wants me there, maybe it's better that way. But I'm done meddling in things that aren't my business. All it does is cause trouble. I'm worried about how my dad would feel about me getting in trouble. He's been so eager to meet me and excited about the magical world, and I don't want to disappoint him. If he's rich and runs a company, he probably cares a lot about image and stuff. He sounds a lot nicer than the Dursleys, but I don't know if he's strict about discipline or anything like that. Does he have really high standards because he went to a fancy boarding school too? Of course. I couldn't tell Dad right now regardless because I sent Hedwig off yesterday, and I don't know if I'll even see her again before end of term. He said he wanted to go to his house in Malibu for the summer, and I don't know if he's already moved there. He said his penthouse was trashed, after all. Nobody I asked remembers for sure whether Malibu is in California or Florida, but I think it's California, and that's a much longer flight than usual. I tried to work it out from an atlas in the library, but I'm not sure how to account for the curvature of the Earth. It might be more than twice as far as New York. I don't know how long a flight that would be for Hedwig total, but if it's over 40 days round trip, there won't be time for her to get back. That's why I asked Dad if she could stay with him if he's in California, and there's not enough time left in the term. And I also told Hedwig if he's in California, she needs to stay there if it takes her more than 20 days to get there. I don't know if owls can count that high, but hopefully it'll work. I gave Hedwig 3 days to rest, of course. It's still crazy how she made it all the way from New York in half her usual time. I told her she could take her time again unless it cut it close with the school term. I thought about leaving my letter longer, so I could maybe do it today when I wouldn't have to worry about Norbert anymore, but I'm glad I didn't. I didn't wait because I wanted to get it out of the way sooner, and because I really didn't want to leave replying to Dad's note for too long. It's too bad if he's in Malibu now. It's still more than a month before the end of term, and it's nice being able to look forward to his letters, and I'd have to wait a long longer then. And it'd be hard having Hedwig away for that long. But maybe he's staying in New York still. That would be nice. Anyway, I didn't want to tell him I got in trouble either, but I can't regardless. I asked Hermione how much she tells her parents, and she said she definitely wasn't going to tell them about getting in trouble, but she's worried McGonagall will write to them anyway. The Dursleys wouldn't care about that, though. They only cared about me getting in trouble in Muggle school when it messed with their schedule. They were happy with everyone thinking I was a delinquent. But she, Hermione, said she hasn't told them about the troll or my broom being jinxed or the philosopher's stone or anything dangerous like that because they wouldn't want her to stay at Hogwarts then. I'm not sure she's of a mind to give a good advice just now, but it made sense, and there's a reason I haven't told my dad any of that stuff either. It'd think about telling Dad about getting to see a baby dragon. He'd probably think it was cool, and since he's a muggle, he couldn't really make any trouble about it, but Hermione said I shouldn't just in case, and she's probably right. We've been telling Hagrid how dangerous it is for weeks. I still can't sleep. I guess I'll write some more. I don't think I went over last night very well. I still don't know how it went so wrong. It really started on Wednesday. I guess I haven't written most of this down because I was too excited about my dad being all right to pay attention. Charlie got back to Ron that same night. He said he wanted us to bring Norbert up to the top of the astronomy tower at midnight last night, Saturday night. Wickwich was last night. I thought it would be simple, but the other thing that happened on Wednesday was that Norbert bit Ron. Ha, said Hagrid, still lost his marbles, treating Norbert like a fluffy bunny and singing him a lullaby. I think he's probably right. Hagrid's got his quirks, but he wasn't never like this before he got Norbert. Anyway, I still thought it'd be fine because it'd only be a few more days, but it started to come undone Thursday. Ron's hand was worse from being bit by Norbert, so he went to the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey must have known something was up, but she told me and Hermione she keeps stuff confidential if no one's in danger, which I have to wonder what she thought about that, but Ron didn't get in trouble, and neither did Hagrid. Ron told her it was a dog that bit him, but he didn't think Shebelivid believed him. Also, are there even any dogs around here besides Fang? Anyway, Malfoy came to visit Ron, saying he wanted to borrow one of his books, which is a really dumb excuse. Everyone knows they hate each other and wouldn't share books, and Ron had Charlie's letter in that book. I don't know if Malfoy noticed it or just got lucky, but he knew about the plan. And of course it was too late to change the plan. There wasn't time to send another letter to Charlie. We had to do it anyway, and we had the invisibility cloak, of course, but it doesn't block out noise. So last night Wesmy had sneaked down to Hagrid, and he had Norbert packed up in a box. He said he put in some rat's brandy for the journey and a teddy bear. I never did figure out what the brandy is for. I didn't think Norbert ever really looked drunk, but I don't know how to tell a drunk dragon from a sober one. But I'm pretty sure the teddy bear got ripped to shreds as soon as he closed the box. I'm surprised Hermione got the box all the way to the top of the astronomy tower. And I'm surprised the cloak covered both of us. Norbert had got a lot bigger. We had to carry the box on our shoulders like a coffin or something, and I'm surprised we didn't topple over. And Hagrid was still being ridiculous, honestly. He said, "Mummy will never forget you," when he said goodbye to Norbert. Anyway, we just got up to the castle and to the base of the Astro Tower when we heard a noise. It was McGonagall Malfoy. Malfoy tried to tell her I was sneaking around with a dragon, but she didn't believe it, and she was already spitting mad about just him wandering after curfew. She took 20 points from him, gave him detention. Looking back, we must have got really lucky that Norbert didn't make any noise that she would have heard. He was thrashing around half the time we carried him. Also, McGonagall looked weird in a hairnet and Tathro bathrobe. But we got to the top of the Astro Tower, and we were really happy Malfoy got detention. Hermione almost started singing. Anyway, Charlie's friends showed up a few minutes later. We handed off Norbert to them, and that was the easy part, and we thought it was over. And then I stupid bloody left my invisibility cloak in the tower. I can't believe I did that. I should have known Betty. It was so stupid. And of course, Filch was right there at the bottom of the stairs. I bet he heard Norbert or Mrs. Norris did. Then he dragged us off to MCG. Of course, we couldn't say anything. I didn't want to get Hagrid in trouble. If we told them there really was a dragon, we would have been in even bigger trouble anyway. I tried to think of some other excuse, but I couldn't imagine any reason she'd accept for us being out of bed. And then just when Ithag thought it couldn't get any worse, MCG showed Uphamville. He nearly spilt the beans about Norbert. Hart tried to tell us he was trying to warn us about Malfoy, trying to cackle us smuggling a dragon, which would have been nice, except he only got himself caught. We already knew about Malfoy. I shook my head to shut Lim up, but McGonagall saw decided Hermione. I tried to prank Malfoy to get him caught out after hours. That would kind of make sense if she came you about the midnight duel Malfoy tried to bait us into, but I don't think she did. She thought Neville overheard believed it too. She even said, I suppose you think it's funny Longbottom heard the story believed it too. I wanted to tell Neville that's not what happened, but I couldn't in front of MCG. Neville is all right. I wouldn't prank him like that. It must have been awful for him. He doesn't like the dark. He hated being stuck out that time we ran into Fluffy. I don't know what the teachers do if someone gets caught when they're stuck out after hours. That time really wasn't Neville's fault. Well, it kind of was. He'd forgot the password, but he wasn't trying to make trouble then. But MCG didn't sound like she'd believe it last night. Maybe I should have tried it. I thought about it, but I didn't think it'd work. Mess Malfoy Neville had made of it. Anyway, it must have been really hard for Neville to do that. All it got him was losing 50 points, so the whole school hates him too. He didn't even do the prank like MCG thought we did. But T-Lat was when MCG said she was disquisted woos. She'd never heard of anything like it before. 4 students out of bed. She was really laying into us. She told Hermione she thought she had more sense, told me she thought Gryffindor meant more to me that which it does. I wished I could've told her that, but Hagrid's important too. I couldn't tell her about that. It was a stupid mistake. I just wish I could fix it. I nearly started crying. Hermione was already crying, I think, but she wouldn't have listened anyway. She said nothing gives you the right to whack around school at night, especially these dads. Wait a minute. She actually said, nothing gives you the right to walk around school at night, especially these days. It's very dangerous. Buddy hat, that doesn't make any sense. There's nothing dangerous going on these days. Well, except Norbert, but I don't think it was that. What was she talking about? And especially what could be so dangerous in Ashub School? There's the Philosopher's Stone Fluffy, but they've been here all year. Or could it be about Norbert? Is it because Ron was bitten the teachers think there's a dangerous poisonous animal running around? But even then, they haven't mentioned anything about it being specially dangerous to us. I sure hadn't heard about it being more dangerous than usual. I don't think Ron Hermione had either. I don't get it. But then McGonagall took 50 points from Gryffindor, and then she said it was 50 points each. It was a fell awful. 150 points gone. That put us all the way down in last place, and we were first Elra 4. Of course, everyone woke up this morning and thought it was a mistake, but then they started figuring out that it was us 3. I don't know how they figured it out. None of us bloody well said anything. I guess the teachers must have told some people who asked. But that was when everyone started getting mad at us. By lunch, no one would sit woos, even the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws were mad. Hermione just hid in the dorm after that. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to go off somewhere alone, but I was worried about going too far Astrage, somehow getting in trouble again, so I just ended up sitting in the Billaville library. It was word that Hermione wasn't there, but it was a better thaw the common room. Everyone either ignores us there or makes nasty remarks behind our backs. It's even worse because Ron's not back yet, but Madame Pomfrey says he should be out tomorrow. That'll be a little bitter. I wish I came you what to do to fix this. There's no Wadge can win the House Cup now. Maybe Ravenclaw can. They're about 50 points behind Slytherin, but Slytherin keep winning 7 years old. 7 years in a row of BC of Snape. They probably can't catter up Mo. Maybe if they win the Quidditch final they can. That's 50 home PTS. What if I throw the final? No, that's dumb would kill me besides. If Cart Winquid were a cup, best house cup best, me we can do it's all best we can do is win house cup Quidditch cup tired. Can't think. Wish ich knew what to do. Just wanted help, just wanted everyone stop being so mad, didn't mean it to do, it didn't mean I harm can't tell real truth, wouldn't help Hagrid in trouble, just want help needed help dad what right we what a right. Don't know well I should tell Ti her bed rillinge in bead oh bloody hell. I fell asleep in the middle of writing and spilt ink all over my bed. I guess the laundry can sort it out, but still, everything's a mess. I'm lucky it didn't soak my diary on accident. I don't know what some of that stuff on the last page was supposed to be. I think I wrote some of it without ink, and I blunted my quill too, so it's hard to read. And I must have been pretty loopy to write, writing in bed for no reason. At least, I think that's what it says. There's probably a spell to clean this up, but I don't know what it is. I think I've heard vanishing is a 5th-year topic, so it's probably way above my level. I guess I'll just have to let the laundry handle it, however that works. I'm still exhausted. If I'd been able to have a proper lie-in, I might have got enough sleep to get back to normal, but we have class today, so I still had to get up early. Chapter 94, 14 May, Holly's Diary. From the Diary of Holly Potter, 14 May, for real this time, I asked Hermione and Ron what they thought McGonagall meant when she said it was dangerous to roam at night, especially these days. Hermione was surprised she hadn't noticed, and she agreed it was definitely fishy, but she's still too frazzled to think much about it. Honestly, I think it was hard enough for her just to get through all our classes today, and that's saying a lot for her. But she's doing really poorly. She didn't raise her hand once in class, and she didn't sit at the front, either. She just kept her head down and worked quietly. It was weird to see her like that. Neville might have it worse, even. No one's talking to him, but he doesn't seem to want to talk to us either, and I can't really blame him. It's kind of our fault he got in trouble. Well, Ron's still talking to him, but I don't think he helped much. Plus, since Ron's friends with me and Hermione, that's less opportunity for Neville to talk to him while avoiding us. Ron just shrugged when I asked him about what McGonagall said. He said it's probably something they're never going to tell us kids anyway, but that's not fair since we still got in trouble for it. Part of me wants to ask McGonagall what she meant, but I'm worried that might count as meddling in things that aren't my business. Besides, I'm worried just mentioning what happened might make her mad again, and I don't want to risk it. I'm trying to just deal with it right now. It's not much worse than I got with the Dursleys telling anyone they talked to that I was a delinquent, but it's harder than I thought. Maybe it's because I have friends now, or had. Most of them don't want to talk to me right now besides Hermione and Ron. I guess I just need to focus on revising for exams for now. It's better than dealing with the rest of Gryffindor. Quidditch practice was pretty bad, actually. No one on the team would talk to me except Wood, and they wouldn't even say my name in front of me. They just called me the Seeker, including Fred and George, which was pretty scummy of them. Maybe they haven't lost 150 points in one go, but I bet they've done worse than roaming the corridors after curfew if half the stories about them are true. Practice wasn't fun like it used to be. I even offered to Wood to resign from the team, but that only made him mad. Resign. What good'll that do? How will we get any points back if we can't win at Quidditch? He kind of shouted it, actually. It was a little scary. I don't see how we can make up the points in the last month of term. We can get 50 points for winning the Quidditch final. That'll put us ahead of Hufflepuff, so we won't be inless place. And we'll win the Quidditch Cup. That'll make Wood happy. but we'd need about 100 more points to catch up with Slytherin for the House Cup. It was close before this, and Snape still favors Slytherin, so I think we're pretty well stuck. Chapter 95, 21 May, Letter from Harley Potter. Letter delivered to Stark Tower by Owl Post, Monday, May 21, 2012. Also included an original birth certificate for Harley Potter. Dear Dad, thank you so much for sending your note back right away. I heard about the battle in New York from the letters Hermione, and a lot of other people got who have Muggle parents, but it wasn't enough to figure out everything that happened or who might have got hurt or killed, especially if it wasn't announced right away. I made a bit of a scene when I read your note, to be honest. I was so worried you might have been in your penthouse or something, and it sounds like it got hit after all, so it's lucky you weren't there. Or were I in your penthouse? Is that why you were in a really bad spot? I'm sorry to hear about your friend. It must be hard to lose someone like that. Can you tell me about him? I don't know what I'd do without my friends here. Hermione's been really supportive the past few days, and so have Lavender and Parvati even. They're two of the other girls in my dorm. And can you tell me about, do you want to tell me? You don't have to. The thing is, I don't know much about what happened in the battle. Part of it was because I was so stressed that I was trying to ignore the news. But either way, I'm sure I missed a lot. I guess it could have been a lot worse. One of the articles said only 110 as many people died as on 911, which is still bad, of course, but it's surprisingly low for a literal alien invasion, or that's what Hermione says. I wondered if you could tell me more about what happened. You don't have to, but now that I know you're all right, I kind of want to know what's going on because all of this sounds mad. Who was Loki, and why did he try to invade New York? Are there other aliens out there? Are they dangerous too? Maybe we can find some friendly aliens. Or Dean Thomas said maybe we can reverse engineer their technology. How bad was it where you were? It sounds like it was pretty bad. What did they look like? I'm sorry. That sounds rude. I just wondered because the photos I've seen weren't very clear. But if you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. Everyone here has been freaking out that space aliens exist too. It was a shock to learn that magic existed, but even knowing that, it's surprising that space aliens are real. Dumbledore's been out all week dealing with it. He's in the International Confederation of Wizards. And Ron's older brother, Charlie, who works with dragons in Romania, says everyone there is worried if those flying monsters from New York could be connected to dragons somehow. I doubt it, though. Real dragons look a lot more like they do in Muggle books and films. But even if they're not connected, people are worried about what might happen with the Statute of Secrecy. Apparently, MACUSA, which is like the American Ministry of Magic, is based in New York. I think I told you that, but no one's sure what's happening with them. The other thing is, my aunt and uncle had my birth certificate, which you can see, obviously, because I'm sending it with this letter. Luckily, Dumbledore gave it to them when he left me with them. I wasn't sure if he would have done, and luckily, they must have kept it for benefits or some such. That was everything you needed, right? Are you in Malibu now? Because I don't know how much longer it would take for Hedwig to fly to Malibu. I'm sending this letter on 12 May. If it takes twice as long as New York, then there should still be enough time for her to make a round trip, but not much more. If it takes longer, and there's not enough time for her to get back, would it be okay if she stays with you until I get there? She can fly faster, of course, but I don't want to ask her to make another trip like that if you already have everything you need. And of course, Hedwig was brilliant. I couldn't believe how fast she made it back. I was counting the days and not expecting her before yesterday. The 11th, that is. I was really confused when she showed up 2 days early. I almost sent a letter back right away, but she needed to rest up after a trip like that. She just about keeled over into Ron's breakfast when she landed, so I don't want to put her through that again unless it's an emergency. Of course, that probably won't come up. Hermione thinks Malibu is less than twice as far as New York, and if you're still in New York now, then it doesn't matter anyway. Love, Holly. Chapter 96, 21 May Roman 2. Logs from Stark Tower. Internal AV logs for Stark Tower. Guest suite on floor 87, Monday, May 21, 2012. At 07:18, Hedwig arrives at her usual window outside Mr. Stark's penthouse, but she finds it boarded up. She pecks at the board with her beak. At this time, Mr. Stark is cooking breakfast for himself and MS. Parts in their guest suite. Transcriber's note, the success of this endeavor is disputed. Jarvis, sir, Hedwig has arrived at the penthouse window. Mr. Stark puts down his frying pan. Mr. Stark, she's here, already. Jarvis, she is unable to enter by her usual method, sir. Mr. Stark, well, open the suite window and tell her to get down here. Jarvis, talk to her, sir. Mr. Stark, why not? It seems to work. What was her expected arrival time again? Jarvis, at normal flight speeds, no earlier than the 23rd of May, sir. I will attempt to speak with her. The window of the guest suite directly below Hedwig's window opens. Jarvis, from inside the penthouse, volume raised. Miss Hedwig, if you would kindly proceed to the window below. Hedwig hops off the ledge at the penthouse window and flutters down to enter the guest suite. At the same time, MS. Parts hurriedly picks up the frying pan and dumps the omelette onto a plate as it begins to burn. Ms. Potts, watch it with the stove. Hedwig appears to spot her perch and flies up to land on it. Ms. Potts cuts the omelette down the middle and separates it onto 2 plates. Transcriber's note, Mr. Stark had tried to make a single 4-egg omelette for efficiency. The success of this recipe is also disputed. Ms. Potts, so telling her to hurry work then, at least 2 days faster. Mr. Stark, sure looks like it. Jarvis, it is a viable hypothesis, but not certain, sir. Studies even of mundane animals suggest that non-verbal cues may be sufficient. Hedwig looks in the direction of the nearest ceiling speaker. Hedwig, vocalization transcribed as woofprack, followed by a ruffling of feathers. Analysis suggests an I heard that attitude. Transcriber's note, I have advised Mr. Stark that the algorithm's increased anthropomorphization of Hedwig may be a sign of instability. Log reviewer's note, or you've just figured out that Hedwig really does understand what we're saying like the rest of us, Mr. Stark, or she really did understand me. Although the question is how long Holly waited before replying, that'll tell us how fast she made it. Mr. Stark removes the mail tube from Hedwig's back and extracts Miss Potter's letter. 2 documents are inside. Mr. Stark, oh good, she got her birth certificate. That'll make things easier. Mr. Stark sets Miss Potter's birth certificate down on the table. He then unrolls her letter and reads for 7 seconds, then frowns. Mr. Stark, I was right. She didn't get the full story. Mr. Stark reads for a further 12 seconds. Mr. Stark, wow, she really didn't get the full story. She didn't even know the missile was the part where I pause. I told her I was in big trouble for a couple minutes, but she assumed it was in the penthouse. Ms. Potts, well, the official story is that sending the missile through the wormhole was part of the plan all along. Mr. Stark, because people get twitchy about the whole burn the city to save it thing. Yeah, can't imagine why. But she still didn't mention it. Mr. Stark scans the letter for 30 seconds. Mr. Stark, in fact, she didn't mention the Avengers at all. Shemus, they've heard that much. MS. Parts moves to stand beside Mr. Stark and reads the letter over his shoulder. They are silent for 44 seconds. Ms. Parts, I think she might be nervous about asking you what happened. She doesn't know how bad it was, not really, and she might be worried how you'll react to it. Mr. Stark nods absently, but does not otherwise respond. Ms. Parts continues reading for a further 41 seconds. Ms. Parts, wow, Hedwig got to Scotland on the 9th. She must have really been rushing it. That's half the time she usually takes. To Hedwig. I bet Yowered after that flight. Hedwig, vocalization transcribed as CU, followed by a head bob. Analysis suggests an attitude of agreement. Mr. Stark still does not respond. Ms. Potts turns to face him. Ms. Potts, Tony, what's wrong? Mr. Stark slowly sits down with an absent expression on his face. He allows the letter to fall to the table. Sensors note an increase in his heart rate. Mr. Stark, absently. I should have known she wants to know what happened. Chapter 97, 28 May, Logs from Stark Tower. Internal Av logs for Stark Tower. Guest suite on floor 87, Monday, May 28, 2012. Mr. Stark sits at a table, rereading Miss Potter's most recent letter. Beside him is a computer tablet displaying a half-finished draft of a reply letter. Transcriber's note. The half that is finished is almost entirely about custody paperwork and not the recent battle against Loki, nor any of Miss Potter's other questions. Miss Potts, Tony, you've been staring at Holly's letter for the past week. You can tell her whatever you want, but you need to tell her something. Mr. Stark sighs and leans back in his seat, rubbing his eyes. Mr. Stark, I know. There's just been so much else to do with the cleanup, the rebuild, Department of Damage Control, new security systems. I just haven't had time to sit down and think about it long enough. Transcriber's note. Mr. Stark was likely referring to the Iron Legion as part of his new security systems. Ms. Potts has not been told the full extent of that project. Ms. Potts, you've been thinking about it plenty. I can tell you have. At some point you just have to buckle down and do it. Mr. Stark, isn't that the same thing I said? Ms. Potts sits down across from Mr. Stark and places one of her hands over his. Ms. Potts, I think you said you've been stuck. And I'm thinking you also don't want to think about it more than you have to. Mr. Stark, it's a defense mechanism. If I think about it too much, I keep getting the urge to fly off and hunt down the World Insanity Council. Ms. Potts, I know you're not going to do that, Tony. You're better than that. Pause. And I also know that's not Theonlithing, it's a defense mechanism against. Mr. Stark, I'd rather just look to the future. The future's something I can do something about. Ms. Potts, so tell her that. She's not expecting anything. She already gave you the out. Mr. Stark, emphatically. But she deserves more than that. I just don't know what to tell her. The public doesn't know how bad it was. I don't want her to freak out over it. Ms. Potts, Tani have known you long enough to know that Holly will have plenty of reasons to freak out over you. If it's not this, it's going to be the next disaster you get involved with, which we both know you will, and I haven't left you, have I? Mr. Stark, that's different. Holly doesn't have anywhere else to go. Ms. Potts, and you think I got to choose who I fell in love with? This is how life works. Or at least it is when you have a superhero in the house. And Holly, I've been reading her letters the same as you. I think she's tougher than she sounds. Mr. Stark, skeptically. Have we been reading the same letters? Ms. Potts, I mean it. Pause, distressed tone. Listen. I had to sit there on that plane, watching the TV as you fought space aliens, not knowing if you were coming back. And then I had to think about the letter I might have to write Holly if you didn't. And you know what the most important thing was? I thought she needs to know she has someone to fall back on. No matter how bad things get, if she knows someone has her back, she'll be all right in the end. That's what I've been getting from her letters. Mr. Stark. Pause. Yeah, okay. I can see that. She's been kind of hard to pin down. She doesn't flinch at cannonballs trying to knock her out of the air, or a giant breaking down the door, or her uncle pulling a rifle on him. But then there's this Mr. Stark motions toward Miss Potter's letter. Ms. Potts, because she's still nervous that she doesn't have anyone who has her back. I know you've been trying to reassure her, but it's not easy for a kid who grew up like she seems to have. And it's not something you can get from just a letter. Mr. Stark, grumbling. Maybe it should fly out there. MS. Potts, we still don't know for sure if you can go to her school safely, if you can even find it. Right now, the best thing you can do for her is answer her letter. You don't have to go into detail. You don't have to tell her anything at all, or you can tell her it's not the kind of thing to put in a letter. Just let her enjoy the rest of her school year and show her the tapes when she comes home. But whatever you do, you need to do it now. You've let it go too long already. Mr. Stark, I've left it this long before. Jarvis, incorrect, sir. The longest you have previously gone before answering a letter from Miss Potter is 5 days. Miss Potts stares at Mr. Stark with a vindicated expression. Mr. Stark, okay, maybe I have been procrastinating. MS. Parts, she's going to be worried about you. You told her you were all right before, but she's still going to worry when she doesn't hear from you. Mr. Stark. Well, she's still not expecting to hear back from me that fast. Pause. In fact, she's not necessarily expecting to hear back from me at all. She thinks I might be in Malibu and too far for a round trip. Ms. Potts. And what happens when she finds out from her friends' families that Tony Stark is still in New York? Are you going to do that to her? Mr. Stark winces. He then picks up his tablet and resumes writing his reply. Mr. Stark, you're right. I should know by now not to question it. Chapter 98, 30 May. Logs from Stark Tower Guest Suite. Audio-video logs from Stark Tower, Guest Suite on Floor 87, Wednesday, 30 May 2012. Transcriber's note. This recording was made by a singular backup camera on a separate circuit, which was added by Mr. Stark after past intrusions. As a result, several views of the room are obscured. Mr. Stark enters the guest suite. An alarm can be heard beeping, and the lights do not turn on automatically as they normally do. Mr. Stark, concerned. Jarvis. Voice slowed and distorted. Welcome home, sir, Mr. Stark looks at the ceiling lights, which have still not activated, then turns them on via the wall switch. The lights reveal S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Nicholas Fury standing at the window and looking out at the city. Fury turns around, revealing that he is carrying several files under his arm. Mr. Stark, you know, I could have sworn I changed my password after the last time you pulled this, Nick. Director Fury approaches the dining table next to the suite's kitchen. Director Fury, I'm surprised you haven't moved back into your penthouse, Mr. Stark. You could have brought in a contractor to fix it up by now. Mr. Stark. Yeah, well, I've been thinking bigger than the penthouse since the battle. I'm gonna renovate all 10 private floors as a space for the Avengers. Only, I'm staying here until my daughter gets out of school for the summer. It's faster with the letters that way. Director Fury. Yes, your daughter. The one who managed to evade even surveillance just by not filing a paternity suitor. Maybe there was another reason we didn't notice. Mr. Stark approaches the dining table. His back is to the camera. Mr. Stark, suspicious. What are you trying to say? Director Fury, when were you going to tell us that your daughter is a witch? Mr. Stark. Pause. Indignant tone. I didn't think you were in the business of handing out insults to kids, Fury. Director Fury, that's not what I meant, and you know it, Stark. Director Fury drops a file on the table. Mr. Stark picks it up and begins to read it. Director Fury, Harley Lily Potter, born July 31st, 2000. Officially a ward of her maternal aunt Petunia Dulcie and her husband, and no enrollment record listed for any registered boarding school in the British Isles. Mr. Stark. Pause. Seriously. Did Rogers talk to you? Director Fury. No, as a matter of fact. And while Yao did mention a few more details about her on the security tapes, I didn't need those either. It was your recent purchase of Grunning's drills. Mr. Stark. A groan. Ah, crap. I should have known that would tip you off. Director Fury. Actually, it didn't at first. But once we knew there was something to find, any intern could have followed the trail from there. Imagine my surprise when I found that her mother's records mysteriously stop after age 11, despite the rest of her family looking perfectly normal. Also, Carlson's report mentioned you'd suddenly acquired Annel, and given the remote Scottish boarding school aspect, I'd have to guess that she's a student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Based on his posture, Mr. Stark appears to look up and stare at Director Fury. Mr. Stark, now wait just a minute, Murtaugh. You know about wizards. Director Fury. What, did you think an entire community of magic users wouldn't show up on our radar? That we wouldn't take note of a threat that large? Do you know how many wizards there are on this planet? Mr. Stark, well, I don't have a lot to go on, but if Britain has enough to have its own school Director Fury, I'll save you the trouble. There are over 500,000 of them. We are ridiculously beyond the point of just knowing about them. Mr. Stark, really? And next, are you going to tell me S.H.I.E.L.D. has its own magic division? Director Fury. No, but you're closer than you think. Director Fury drops a second file on the table. This one is colored red, and in still frames, the words "Top Secret" and "So's Protected" can be resolved on the cover. Mr. Stark picks it up. Director Fury, Ward, the Wicked Arcana Response Division, a separate agency that runs in parallel with SHIELD and reports directly to the World Security Council. The reason we aren't constantly panicking over them is that they police their own. They worry about the magical world so we don't have to. Usually, Mr. Stark, angrily. Then where were they when Loki attacked? Director Fury, where they always are, protecting their own and keeping a low profile. But that doesn't mean they weren't helping. Why do you think Roger's perimeter held so well? We both know you didn't get all of them in the air. Some of the stragglers made it all the way to Bleecker Street before they got shot down. Why do you think so few civilians died on the streets, even with the police leading the evacuation? The wizards were there. They just don't like to be seen, as you probably know by now. Mr. Stark. Pause. All right. Then why was Loki such a big deal if you already knew about magic? Director Fury, because Loki is a goad. His magic isn't like your daughter's magic. Believe me, I had extensive conversations with the director of Ward after Thor's first appearance, and he was just as scared of Asgardian magic as we were. Anything one of Thirsto's another one of theirs can counter, but they couldn't counter Loki's mind control knot with spells. Romanoff figured that one out. They couldn't detect his illusions without touching them, and they couldn't fool him with their own. They can't keep up with Asgardian strength and speed. They can't match the power of Thor's hammer, and they can't travel across interstellar distances. In fact, they're not great at battlefield scale fighting in general. A gun is faster and more accurate than a wand. Their numbers and their stealth operations make them more dangerous, but they still couldn't take on the root cause of the threat. Mr. Stark spends 4 minutes and 33 seconds reading through both files in silence. Mr. Stark. All right, Nick. Fine, you got me. Yes, Holly's a witch. Yes, she's at Hogwarts. And normally this is where I'd tell you to butt the hell out of my personal affairs, but before that, I have 2 questions. First, did you tell anyone in Ward about Harley? Director Fury. Not yet. I thought you'd earned a little discretion. Mr. Stark. Good, keep it that way. It turns out Harley's famous in her world, and I don't want the public to know about her before I get custody locked down. Director Fury. A groan. I should have known my luck was that bad. And just Thaudos, an 11-year-old orphan, get famous enough for it to be an issue. Mr. Stark. According to her, everyone thinks she killed some evil wizard called Voldemort when she was a baby. Obviously, it had to be her mother and stepfather who did it, but to hear her tell it, nobody cares about that. Director Fury. HM now, Voldemort you've heard of. He was getting big enough that Ward warned us about him back in '98 or so. They also said there was something funny about the way he died, but I left it to their side to look into it. Transcriber's note. Both Mr. Stark and Director Fury pronounced Voldemort with a final t. Mr. Stark. Really? Your I need to know everything didn't kick in. Director Fury. Believe it or not, I'd know how to delegate, Stark, and how to compartmentalize. What was your second question, Mr. Stark? Is there any chance you can talk to the wizards and get my house secured against magical intruders? Director Fury. Pause. If you want to keep Harley under wraps, you'll have to wait for now. But yes, I would have done that anyway. If the Avengers are going to start intersecting with the wizarding world, we need to be prepared for threats from both sides. Chapter 99, 4 June, Harley's Diary. From the Diary of Harley Potter, 4 June. I think it finally happened. Quirrell told Snape how to get past his anti-dark force spell on the Philosopher's Stone. It's just my luck I happened to overhear it. I was walking back from the library when I heard whimpering in a classroom. So I went to see if someone needed help, but then I heard Quirrell. He said, "No, no, not again, please." I couldn't hear who he was talking to, but the next thing he said was, all right, all right." And next thing, he came running out of the classroom looking pale and like he was about to cry. I looked in the classroom, and there was no one else there, but the door at the other end was ajar. I almost went through it before I thought I shouldn't be meddling anymore. But still, it must have been Snape in there. Quirrell's scared of a lot of things, but there's no one else here who would threaten him like that, so he must have told Snape how his spell worked. It's lucky Dumbledore's back at Hogwarts now. He was gone a long time after the aliens attacked New York dealing with international stuff. If Dumbledore's gone, Snape might think that's a perfect opportunity, and if Snape knows how to get past Quirrell's spell, then that means the only thing left protecting the stone is Fluffy. And Ron wondered if there might be a book in the library that says how to get past a three-headed dog so he wouldn't have to ask Hagrid. Hermione said we should tell Dumbledore because they'll throw us out if we try anything ourselves, which might be a good idea, but we still don't have any proof. I think we'll have to do if there's any sign Snape's got past Fluffy, but until then I'm worried what'll happen if Dumbledore doesn't believe us. Snape's a teacher, and he's probably already got Dumbledore to tell him about this Dumbledore's protection. Quirrell's too scared to back us up, and telling them about the troll or any of the other stuff won't help. All Snape has to do is deny it and say we made it up to get him sacked. And if it gets that far, he'll know we are on to him, and he might try something else to get rid of us. Plus, we're not supposed to know about Fluffy and the Philosopher's Stone in the first place. We might get in even more trouble for knowing about that. They'll know we went in the third-floor corridor at least, and there was all that stuff Hagrid wasn't supposed to tell us, so he could get in trouble too. None of the other teachers can help, either. Snape must have all the ones who are protecting the stone convinced. Binns doesn't even know what year it is. Sinistra could Professor Sinistra help. She knows about Muggle science and technology, and she was happy to talk to me about Muggle astronomy and satellites and stuff. Maybe she'd have a more open mind. She's not involved with the stone, and maybe she's not as involved with the other teachers, seeing as her classes are at night. But I'm still worried what'll happen if it gets back to Snape. I don't think there's anyone else. We haven't met any of the elective teachers. Hagrid doesn't believe us. Pince, Pomfrey, and Hooch don't really get involved with the teachers' stuff, and Filch would just love to get more students chucked out. My and Hermione's parents are Muggles, and Ron hasn't mentioned his parents or his older brothers being able to do anything. I think we'll have to leave it unless Snape gets past Fluffy. Ron still thinks we should try a bit more poking around, but I told him no, we've done enough of that. And after dinner, Hermione kept bugging me, trying to say we should go to Dumbledore, but I told her I wasn't doing it. If it got back to Snape, he'd know we're on to him, and he might try to kill me again. It's what I've been worried about for months. That shut her up quick. I kind of snapped at her, honestly. Anyway, it's not our business if Snape is rich and immortal, is it? I wouldn't like it. It would be really unfair, and it certainly wouldn't be good for Nicholas Flamel, but there's only so much bad he can really do with it, right? Maybe he'd even leave the school so we wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. Chapter 100, 6 June, Harley's Diary. From the Diary of Harley Potter, 6 June, it's Voldemort. Voldemort's the one who's after the Philosopher's Stone. I saw him in the forest. At least Firenze Hermione says it's spelt Firenze. Point is, he a centaur he told me it was Voldemort, and Snape must be working for him. He's going to give him the stone so he can return to power, and the only thing left stopping him is Fluffy. And Dumbledore, Hermione says. Dumbledore's the only one Voldemort was ever scared of, but he's really busy. If he gets called away again, we had our detention tonight for the astronomy tower mess. Hagrid took us in the Forbidden Forest. I don't know why Cincelus it's forbidden, but he had us looking for some unicorns Telat had been hurt killed. We ran Itno Voldemort. He was weak, he was DRM King Unicorn Blood, which turns out is some super dark healing magic. He tried to attack me, but Firenze showed up chased him off. The other centaurs were mad at him for it. He told me it was Voldemort, he needs the Philosopher's Stone to return to full power. I'm not going to be able to get this all down right now. Hermione says we need to sleep BC, we have class another late night tomorrow tonight 4 Astro. She's probably right. It's nearly 4. We were talking ran half the night, the sky's already getting light. It's crassage how early sunrise is these days. And somehow I got my invisibility cloak back. We never did get it back after we left it on the Astro Tower. It wasn't Herether when I checked next class, but I didn't dare ask Sinistra. But now I found it back on my bed, Note Tlat says, just in case. I guess it was the same person who gave it to me for Christmas, whoever it was. I don't know what I can do. All I've got to do is wait for Snape to steal the stone, then Voldemort can come finish me off. I should probably try to sleep anyway, as hard as that sounds. I don't need to get ink on my bed again. I'll try to get everything else down for Yaubwa Classed tomorrow, Tade. I don't know why I wrote for you. I'm still only writing this for me. It's not like anyone's going to read it if Voldemort skills me. Or maybe they will. I'm still famous. I don't know if I like that. Okay, I'm done. I really am getting loopy now. Chapter 101, 6 June Roman 2. Letter from Anthony Stark. Letter delivered to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Thursday, 6 June 2012. Also included. Dear Harley, that was an impressive feat for Hedwig. Even with you giving her time to rest, she showed up sooner than I expected her. And I should apologize for taking so long to write back. So, first of all, I'm not in Malibu. I'm still in New York. After the battle, I decided to do a full renovation of the penthouse, so it's going to be sitting empty for a while. But Pepper and I are staying in one of the guest suites in the tower for now. I had the same thought about Hedwig's flight time. I didn't know if she could fly that far, so I'm staying here until I come to pick you up. There's plenty to do here anyway. And now that I'm paying attention, I really shouldn't have taken so long to write back. By my math, Hedwig won't have enough time for another round trip after she gets back to you, unless you tell her to rush it again, of course. You can do that if you want, but you don't have to. You can send another letter back, and Hedwig can stay here for the rest of your school year, or you can just wait until we can meet face-to-face next month. Or I should say this month by the time you get this. Your choice. And look, I don't want you to think I've been slacking off as a dad. I've thought about flying out to England a bunch of times so I could be closer to you. And it's not just because I've been busy that I haven't. Since I apparently can't get to your school or any other magical place right now, and since you seem to love your school so much, I wanted to keep this whole thing low profile. Me flying out that would attract the most annoying kind of attention, and you don't need those kinds of people prying into your personal life, even if they can't get into the magical world, but I'm not convinced of that anymore. It'll be better when I'm there to have your back. But if you need me to come out there sooner, just say the word. Second thing, paperwork. Since we might not have a chance to talk before then, I had to cover all the contingencies, but now that I have all the documents I need, I could make some arrangements. DNA test on Monday. Court hearing on Tuesday. If all goes well, that'll give me custody in the UK. Interview at the embassy on Wednesday for your passport. You have to be there in person for that, so that can't be done sooner. It's hard telling how long that'll take. It might be processed next day, or it might take a couple weeks, but I've got some favors I can call in. The harder problem is getting custody of Yaubaforeth hearing without your aunt and uncle making a fuss. In theory, even that's easy. It's cute that you think your uncle could intimidate me. I've taken down worse than him in my sleep. Literally. What I'm more concerned about is if they make it a legal dispute. I'd crush them in court, of course, but it would take time. Plus, after what I've seen, I don't want to have to pay them off. It will pay them off if it makes a difference for you ever having to see them again. But I don't want to. The best thing to do would be to get them to sign off on everything without realizing there's money to be had. And after talking it over with Pepper and a British solicitor who's willing to bend the rules a little, we think we have something that'll work. You need to mail the 3 forms I sent you to your aunt and uncle for them to sign and send back. The consent form is basically a permission slip. It says I can take care of you until custody is decided as long as we stay in the UK. No problems there. The two government forms together let them say they're not contesting me getting custody without having to actually show up in court. With that plus the paternity test, the judge will probably accept it. Of course, all that's if you haven't told your aunt and uncle about me yet. I get the feeling from your other letters that you haven't. If you have, then we'll probably have to fall back on the payoff. I'll have the solicitor on call to go to their house or come out to the train station if there's a problem. But if they don't know who I am, then it sounds like you can just send them the forms and they'll sign them. I didn't put my name on them. We'll fill that in when we get them back. Again, tell them any story you have to, and we'll sort it out later. Maybe the consent form is how Hogwarts handles summer school. Maybe my name's not on the forms because the custody hearing is in Magic Court. Do whatever you think will work. The worst that can happen is they start asking questions that take money to shut them up. So if all that goes well, I'm going to have Happy pick you up at the train station and bring you to the hotel on June 23. I put in a picture of him so you'll know what he looks like. Happy's my bodyguard chauffeur, and he's very reliable. In fact, if you get along well him, I might make him your bodyguard for the summer. We'll stay at the hotel for the weekend, and then after the custody hearing, we'll be in the clear. Now, with all that out of the way, you deserve to know what happened in the battle, and I promise I'll show you whatever you want to see when you get here. But I think it's not the kind of thing that works to talk about in a letter if you can help it. I know I'll feel better if you're here in person to talk about it, and I think you will, too. The part where I was in really big trouble, I probably shouldn't tell you right now because it's classified. Normally, I wouldn't get uptight about that, but I've got some friends who would be very annoyed if I put it in a letter. Short version is there are some things about the battle that the public don't know, but I do because was unlucky enough to see it up close and personal, and the whole city was in more danger than it looked like. I can tell you about that when you get here too, but it wasn't in the penthouse. I was in the penthouse right when the attack started, but you might say I got out the express way. And Hedwig was great too. She saved my ass a couple times with those claws of hers when Loki showed up. Be sure to give her an owl treat or something from me if that's a thing. Phil worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. That's the super-secret spy agency that's kinda, sorta in charge of the Avengers. To be honest, he was more Pepper's friend than he was mine. Our personalities tended to clash. He was a typical government man, always so serious, and I'm, well, me. But he was a good man, really came in clutch in the end. He personally blasted Loki through a wall. Unfortunately, Loki had alien super strength, so it didn't work. That was when he died. Loki stabbed him in the back literally. He does stuff like that. Lakafer now, I'll stick to the stuff the public don't know, or it's at least available out there. As far as anyone can tell, Loki and also Thor from the Avengers are the literal Norse gods, which I would have said was crazy before I found out about magic, but it's real. They're over 1,000 years old, and they were worshipped as gods by the Vikings. But what they really are is aliens from a planet called Asgard, where they've integrated science and magic together, which is where that get their powers. Which, having seen some your magic, is certifiably awesome, and I really want to find out how they did it, but I'm a little busy right now. Oh, and you shouldn't believe anything you read about them in the Eddas. Apparently, there's a bunch of stuff in there that didn't really happen. Obviously, there are friendly aliens out there. Thor's one of them. Well, friendly by Viking standards anyway, and there are sure to be a lot of other aliens, but we haven't met them yet. And if anything else unfriendly shows up, that's what the Avengers are for. It would be nice if I could get some more information about the magical world before you come home. But if it's safer to just wait and do it together, I can work with that. Besides, I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions that'll be easier to answer with someone who knows the lay of the land with me. And we can ask about meeting one of those Quidditch teams, too. I'm glad you're willing to look over your options for schools. I read through all the stuff you got from Hermione's parents, and it sounds like your options are pretty limited to Hogwarts or Ilvermorny. Obviously, I like Ilvermorny better, with it being just down the road in Massachusetts, but we can look into if there are any ways to do a fair comparison this summer. I also think it's still worth looking into the homeschooling and small group instruction options. Maybe see if there are any ways to bend the rules. I'm pretty good at doing that. Just know that whatever happens, I love you and I'll be here to support you. Love, Dad. Chapter 102, 6 June Roman 3, Harley's Diary, Cont. From the diary of Holly Potter, still 6 May June, not enough sleep. But I managed to sleep some somehow. I'm taking my free period to try to write down what happened. But I have another problem now. I got a letter from my dad at breakfast, and now I need to think about what I'm going to tell him. Hermione says I'm mad to even think about telling him about Voldemort. She's still not telling her parents about anything dangerous because they'll want to pull her out of Hogwarts. But I'm worried I'll have to. If Voldemort comes back, I'm the one he's coming for, and it's not like he'll ignore me if I leave Hogwarts. Probably not even if I leave Britain if he's as bad as everyone says. Dad might need to know. The thing is, I've barely even thought about Voldemort since Hagrid told me about him last summer. I've had nightmares, sure, but that's it. Hagrid, said Voldemort might not be dead, but no one's seen him for 10 years, so I just sort of figured I didn't need to worry about him. It made sense he might have died, since no one's seen him, and I guess there was an explosion big enough to flatten our house when he attacked us. But Hagrid said, some say he died. Codswallop, in my opinion. Dunno if he had enough human left in him to die. But Hagrid also didn't think he was just biding his time in hiding where he could come back any time, because a lot of his followers left, and people came out of trances saying they'd been bewitched. What was it he said? Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere, but lost his powers, too weak to carry on. And that must what happened because I saw him tonight last night. Voldemort must still have some powers left, though. When he looked at me, my scar hurt so bad I couldn't even stand. Plus he killed a unicorn somehow, and Hagrid says they're really hard to kill. But he couldn't fight a centaur, though, and I don't think Firenze even had any weapons. Maybe he was worried more were coming, but Bane and the others sure weren't about to help me. They said I was supposed to die because of some stupid horoscope thing or something. Okay, so what happened is yesterday, Professor McGonagall sent us a note saying our detention would be at 11 o'clock at night, and we were supposed to meet Filch in the entrance hall. I'd forgotten we even had the detention, so that wasn't fun. After we got back last night, Hermione decided they were trying to make it a scare 'em straight sort of detention. We were in trouble for being out after curfew, so they made us go out after curfew and do something really unpleasant. I don't think they were expecting Voldemort to be there, though. It was me, Hermione, Neville, and Malfoy, of course. I'd forgotten Malfoy had detention, too. I hoped we'd just be scrubbing floors or something. I can do that. But Filch took us down to Hagrid's hut instead. He was grumbling about not being allowed to hang us by our wrists from the ceiling, too. I think that scared Neville. I thought it might not be so bad when I found out we'd be working with Hagrid, but he was acting all tough about it and saying we'd done wrong and had to pay for it. That was pretty mean of him, now I think about it. Whereas ones who helped him with Norbert, I don't know if he was playing it up for Malfoy or what. Malfoy deserved it for getting us into that mess. Filch was loving it that we were going into the forest. He said, I'm much mistaken if you'll all come out in one piece. I don't think it was supposed to be that dangerous, but he really scared Neville. He even scared Malfoy. Malfoy said he was worried about werewolves, but Filch just said, should have thought of them before you got in trouble, shouldn't you? Hagrid did tell Filch off for lecturing us, but he still told us, mostly Malfoy, that we had to go into the forest if we wanted to stay at Hogwarts. Malfoy wasn't happy, he said, but this is servant stuff, it's not for students to do. Then I asked him, what are you afraid to get your hands dirty, Richie Rich? Malfoy just looked at me like I was mental, but Hermione laughed, so that helped some. But I think Neville thought I was mental because I wasn't more scared of the forest. Hagrid told Malfoy he could come into the forest with us or leave Hogwarts. Malfoy came in with us. Then Hagrid pointed out some unicorn blood on the ground. It doesn't look like normal blood. It was thick and silvery. He said he found a unicorn dead a month ago, and they thought it might be a one-time thing, but then there was another one last week, and now a third one was hurt. He said we had to find it and maybe put it out of its misery. Which doesn't make sense with what Ferenza said. He said it's really evil to kill a unicorn. Does putting it out of its misery not count? I suppose the whole thing does sound dangerous, even without Voldemort. Malfoy asked, what if whatever's hunting unicorns finds us first? Which was actually a good question. Hagrid said there was nothing in the forest that would hurt us with him or Fang around. But then Malfoy said he wanted to go with Fang, and then Hagrid told him Fang is a coward. I don't know what he was thinking there. I'm starting to think he really was just trying to scare Malfoy, but he only ended up scaring Neville more. The forest was really eerie at night. It doesn't really get full dark here this time of year. Professor Sinistra gets annoyed about it, but the forest sure does. The trees are really thick, and we couldn't see very far, and I kept feeling like we were being watched. Hagrid had us split up and follow the blood trail in both directions. Malfoy and Neville went with Fang, and Hermione and I went with him, and we were to send up sparks if there was trouble. After a while, we heard a slithering sound that might have been Voldemort, but it didn't come close to us. Then we met a centaur, a different one. Well, he was the first one. This one's name was Ronan. Hagrid tried to ask him for information about the unicorn, but Ronan wouldn't say anything useful. He just kept saying, Mars is bright tonight. That sounds like it should have something to do with war. I guess centaurs do a lot of astrology. Then another centaur called Bane showed up, and he said, Mars is bright tonight too. I don't think Hagrid liked them much. He said, ruddy stargazers. Not interested in anything closer than the moon. A little while after that we saw red sparks that meant the others were in trouble, so Hagrid told Hermione and me to stay put and went crashing after them. We were really worried, especially about Neville. It was our fault he was out there in the first place, so we didn't want anything bad to happen to him. But it turned out they weren't in trouble at all. Malfoy sneaked up behind Neville and grabbed him, and he panicked and shot up the sparks. Hagrid was peeved. He made us switch up, so I went with Malfoy and Fang, and Neville stayed with him and Hermione. He whispered to me that he thought Malfoy wouldn't be able to scare me. Hermione was still worried, though. She asked me if I'd be all right with Malfoy. I wasn't scared of him, though. I wanted to cheer her up, so I told Malfoy where she could hear it. Come on, Home Alone, let's get this over with. That made Hermione laugh again, but I'm not sure it helped with the others. Malfoy, Neville, and Hagrid looked at me like I was mental, but I took Fang and started off, so Malfoy had to catch up. Then he said, What are you talking about, Potter? You're the one who's got no parents. I told him, It's a Muggle film, Malfoy. See, it's about this kid who's stuck at home alone on Christmas. But he stopped me and said, Do I sound like I care, Potter? He wasn't interested in talking, and I really wasn't either. It was getting nervous, but not because of him. The blood trail was getting thicker, so I thought we were getting close to the unicorn. I'm surprised the unicorn had that much blood in it. We must have followed that trail for half an hour, and that was after the first part of the detention, and there was still a pool of it on the ground when we found it. I wonder how much blood a unicorn has. Humans have about 8 pints, I think, and a horse is, 1,000 pounds. Oh, they must have gallons of the stuff then. Maybe it wasn't so weird. This is getting morbid, and I'm not even at the Voldemort part yet. So Malfoy and I finally reached the unicorn, and I could tell it was dead right away. It was terrible, the way it looked. It was so beautiful, too. You see horses on the telly and stuff, but they don't look so otherworldly like that. And even dead, it was so pearly white that it seemed like it glowed. But it was in an awful state. Its legs were sticking out at wrong angles, and its whole side was soaked with blood where it had been slashed. And of course, the poor thing must have been stumbling around in pain for a whole day before it collapsed. Or maybe Voldemort had to attack it again to finally kill it. But the way the blood trail kept getting thicker, I have a bad feeling it just kept going till it collapsed. It must have been terrible for it. We just seen the unicorn when I heard that slithering sound again, and something in a robe came crawling out of the shadows. It looked like a human crawling on all fours, I think, but it was wearing this shapeless black robe, so it was hard to tell at first. Then it started drinking blood from the gash on the unicorn's side. Malfoy screamed. I wish I could say he screamed like a little girl, but it was worse. Like someone was trying to murder him, kind of a scream. It would have scared me pretty bad if I hadn't already been more scared of the crawling thing. Now I think about it, he probably knew what the stuff about unicorn blood meant, so he knew it was really evil. Or he thought it was a vampire. Either way, Malfoy ran for it, and so did Fang. I wanted to run too. I should have, but I was so scared I couldn't move. I really should vet on something, but I just couldn't think straight. I'd never seen anything like it before. Even regular, really dangerous stuff like Fluffy wasn't like this. I didn't know about unicorn blood yet, or that it was Voldemort, but I could just feel that it was super evil. And when it stood up and came toward me, I just knew it was coming to kill me. I think I would have run then. At least I hope I would have. But that was when my scar hurt all of a sudden, the worst it's ever been. It was like someone took a hot poker to my head. It hurt so bad I collapsed on my knees, and it was going to get me. But then something jumped clean over me and charged it, and it ran away. It took a minute for the pain to pass enough to stand up. When I did, I saw the thing that had charged in was another centaur. That one was Firenze. He was younger and nicer than the others, though. He even offered to give me a ride back to Hagrid. Except then Ronan and Bane showed up again, and Bane was furious. He was angry Firenze was letting a human ride on his back like a common mule. But then he said something about Firenze setting himself against the heavens, which centaurs aren't supposed to do. I didn't quite get it, but I gathered that it was written in the stars somehow that Voldemort was supposed to kill me last night, and Firenze broke some kind of centaur law by stopping him. Firenze got angry then and said he set himself against the thing that was killing the unicorns, even if he had to work with humans. The other centaurs at least let him take me back, and then he explained what's so bad about unicorn blood. He said that unicorn blood can keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death. But a unicorn is so pure and defenseless, and killing it is so evil that you'll have a cursed life if you do it. Wait a minute, defenseless. But Hagrid said hardly anything could kill a unicorn. But Firenze must have been right about killing a unicorn being evil, because I could feel how bad it was. I asked him who would be that desperate, and wouldn't death be better, but he said the elixir of life could break the curse, I guess, because it would bring you back to full strength and power. And of course, there's one person who's clung to life for years waiting for the chance to get his power back, and that's Voldemort. And now Snape's almost got everything he needs to steal the Philosopher's Stone and bring Voldemort back. I thought he was just in it for himself, but this is so much worse. If Snape were rich and immortal, it'd just be really unfair, but if it's Voldemort, he'll come to kill me and anyone else he doesn't like. Probably everyone who worked against him before. Hagrid said how bad it was and how many people he killed then. Neville went to bed when we got back. He didn't know what happened, and he didn't need to know. And Malfoy saw something drinking unicorn blood, but that was it. But we woke Ron up to tell him. He'd been sleeping in the common room, waiting up for us. He was freaked out, of course. Well, he was partly freaked out when I kept saying Voldemort's name. He was still scared of just that. We talked for hours trying to figure out what to do and what to think about it, but we didn't really get anywhere. Ron was too scared of the idea of Voldemort to be much help. Hermione was trying to help. She said Voldemort won't touch me as long as Dumbledore's around. But Dumbledore's not always around. He was away a lot last month because of the alien invasion. And Hermione also said maybe the centaurs were wrong when they read the stars. In fact, Firenze even said that too. Hermione said muggles, the smart ones, think astrology is rubbish, And even if it's not in the magical world, Professor McGonagall says divination is a very woolly branch of magic, and it isn't always right. I wish I could believe her. It's only been a few hours, and I'm already half expecting Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. I don't know how I'm going to get through my exams like this. Ah, I just remembered exams are next week. This is going to be awful. Classes are done for the day, so's dinner. We still have astronomy at midnight, and I'm tempted to skive off. I still haven't decided what to tell my dad. Hermione still thinks I'm mental for wanting to tell him anything. So does Ron. He says his mum would panic if she knew he got anywhere near Voldemort or even just one of his followers. Hermione says her parents would want to pull her out of Hogwarts if they even knew about Fluffy, and she's worried about magical education being mandatory and what would happen with the limited options for Muggle-borns. That's not a problem for me, though. There's a school in America where Dad would prefer I go anyway. He'd make me go there for sure after this, which wouldn't be great. But I feel like he needs to know. He'll be a sitting duck if Voldemort shows up otherwise. If he knows, maybe he can get extra protective enchantments on his house or something. He can at least try to prepare. But I don't know what he'll do. If he I don't even want to think about if he'll think it's too dangerous to have me around. Would he decide I should stay at boarding school like his dad did? He didn't sound like he would, but he's never had to deal with a wizard terrorist coming after him. Does Voldemort count as a terrorist or a serial killer, a mob boss? Everyone talks about him like a movie villain who wants to take over the world and kills people for fun while laughing maniacally. That should have been funny, sort of, a little, but it's not. I can hear that laugh in my nightmares. The point is, normal people don't have to deal with wizard terrorists. I guess Dad said his godfather tried to kill him, but I bet his godfather didn't have magical powers. Is there a way I could tell him that might not freak him out so much? Maybe I could just tell him that Voldemort's still alive. That way he can still prepare and not be caught by surprise. But I'd have to explain we're still alive, and why he's been gone for 10 years, and why it's a big deal now. Plus, if he wants to learn everything about the magical world, he might find out a lot of it on his own. Would it be better to tell him all of it so he doesn't find out somewhere else later and ask me why I didn't tell him? Or maybe not all of it. There's a lot of stuff that involves danger or breaking rules or both. But the thing is, a lot of information I've got involved breaking rules. It's how I knew Snape was talking to Quirrell, and how I knew he tried to get past Fluffy, or even that Fluffy is there. I'd rather just not tell him any of it. He already wanted to know about magical security. Maybe I can just focus on that, and I won't have to tell him about Voldemort specifically. Would that be enough? Voldemort's not just a wizard burglar or whatever. Even Gringotts couldn't keep him out. And it's supposed to be the safest place around besides Hogwarts. I just don't know what to tell him. Chapter 103, 6 June Roman 4, Dumbledore's Notes. From the personal notes of Albus Dumbledore, file on Voldemort, ex-ref Harry Potter, ex-ref Voldemort's servants, ex-ref Rubius Hagrid, Wednesday, 6 June 2012. Kept in shorthand. We have been very lucky in more ways than one. The reports I have heard from the forest last night are alarming, even if they have filled in some of the gaps in my knowledge. And it is only thanks to the centaur Firenze standing against his herd's traditions that complete disaster was averted. Last night, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Neville Longbottom, and Draco Malfoy were assigned a detention in the forest with Hagrid. Hagrid set them to searching for a third wounded unicorn whose trail he had seen. Unfortunately, Harley and Draco found the unicorn dead, and there encountered Voldemort feeding on its blood. Draco immediately fled, and with luck, he did not have enough information to connect the entity with Voldemort. However, according to Firenze's report, Harley was in so much pain, I suspect from her curse scar, that she was unable to flee. That is even stronger proof of the creature's identity. It was at that point that Firenze, who had also been tracking the unicorn killer, intervened and chased Voldemort away from Harley. He reported that he explained to her who it was and the significance of consuming the unicorn's blood, of which I approve. Regrettably, I cannot shield Holly forever, and it is best that she is forewarned if it happens again. More alarmingly, Ferenza reported that his herd had read the stars to foretell that Holly was destined to die in the forest at Voldemort's hand. He has been disciplined by his herd for intervening and for carrying Holly to safety. How this connects to Sybil's original prophecy about Holly I remain unsure. But we are very lucky that Ferenza was willing to stand against unicorn slaughter, even if it meant standing against the traditions of his people as well. I told him I would remember his name if he is ever in need. I was also forced to have a long discussion with Hagrid about what kinds of work in the forest are suitable for children, and why he thought tracking a wounded unicorn was one. Punishing curfew breaking with an unpleasant late-night detention can work when used judiciously, but there were obvious problems with how he conducted this one. Nonetheless, the incident has given me several useful pieces of information. But if Voldemort is so desperate, he will not wait much longer. His weakness is good in that he will be less of a threat, but bad in that he may order Quirrell to bring him through the protections on the stone at any time, especially if he believes Quirrell deliberately delayed him from his previous opportunity. I fear we cannot wait until the summer holidays to spring our trap. I will speak to Severus and plan for the evening after the last exam, the 14th, so as to reduce the risk and disruption to the students. However, we must be vigilant in case Voldemort makes his move sooner. I do wonder what Quirrell's role is in all this. This new information multiplies the possibilities, albeit not in his favor. Is he a loyal servant to Voldemort? Or is he acting under duress, perhaps even working to slow Voldemort up, either out of conviction that he should not return, or more likely out of fear? I had thought that we might count ourselves fortunate that Voldemort happened to choose a former Muggle studies professor as his servant. Quirrell may have been concerned enough about beings from another world with apparent magical powers to divert Voldemort's attention to it. For all he affects pureblood supremacy and wizard supremacy, Voldemort grew up living under the shadow of nuclear war in the Muggle world, and he is intelligent enough not to dismiss it, especially as the Muggle Susadone of their atomic bombs in the battle. But this line of thought seems less likely now. If Voldemort's delay was caused by his own weakness, then there is less that I might credit to Quirrell. Regardless, if we can trap Voldemort quickly enough that he is forced to leave Quirrell alive, I will have to question the latter very thoroughly about his actions. Chapter 104, 13 June, Interlude, Hedwig. Hedwig's human hadna told her to rush this delivery. In fact, she told her to stay put when she reached New York, anticipating that there wouldn't be enough time for a return trip at her usual speed. But Hedwig could sense Holly's worry and the urgency of her task. She didn't know why there was a mismatch between what Holly had told her and what she was feeling. She didn't know that Holly still believed, or had convinced herself, that her father was just an ordinary, if rich Muggle who wouldn't be able to help her with magical threats. But something was clearly wrong, and Hedwig was going to do her part to fix it. Holly believed her father couldn't help her, but Hedwig knew better. She had seen, and helped, Holly's father fight Agad with magical powers equal to any of the wizards she had met. She had also seen him fly, not with a broomstick, but with a suit of armor that might as well have been magic, and was far faster than any bird or witch in the air. Hedwig couldn't understand what was in the Holly's letter, nor the full dynamic between father and daughter, but she was sure Holly would want her father to learn the information faster if she knew the full story. And even more important, Hedwig could sense that her human felt very much under threat, and she was going to do what was needed to stop it. She didn't fly flat out like she had when delivering Holly's father's letter after the battle. To her owlish understanding, the threat didn't seem immediate, and given that, she wasn't about to pull a stunt like that again without specific instructions. But Shedd'd pick up the pace. And while Hedwig didn't know Hogwarts' calendar, either, she was still an owl, after all. Some sixth sense might have told her that 6 days out would leave her just enough time for one more normal-speed delivery back before the end of the school year. Now, the familiar skyline of the human city came into view. Hedwig knew it well by now. This was, after all, the 10th letter she had delivered to the tower where her human's father lived, and she had also spent a fair amount of time hunting here while she was waiting for replies. Harley's father's original residence was still boarded up, and only one of the 5 large letters still stood on the side of the tower. Hedwig still didn't know what the letters meant. That wasn't how post-owl magic worked. But as always, that wasn't important to her. She was still going to do her job, the same as always. She swooped down to the 87th floor, and the window opened for her. Harley's father, luckily, also recognized the urgency of her arrival, and he didn't waste time. Only 16 days after he'd sent his last letter meant that something was up. Unlike the letter she delivered before the Battle of New York, he read this one right away. Chapter 105, 13 June Roman 2, Letter from Harley Potter. Letter delivered to Stark Tower by Owl Post, Wednesday, June 13, 2012. Transcriber's note. Unusually, this letter had visible tear stains in several places, along with a number of scribbles, ink blots, and sections of unusually messy handwriting. It was also Miss Potter's longest letter to date, at 2.47 meters 8 feet, 1 inch. Dear Dad, I have a lot of things to tell you, and I probably should have told you them sooner, at least some of them. I didn't because I didn't want to worry you, and up till now, I didn't think they'd be important, but now they are. I told you about Voldemort, the evil wizard who killed my mum and stepdad. But what I didn't tell you is that he's not dead. I think I wrote to you before that things are peaceful now, and I wasn't lying when I wrote that. And I think I also wrote to you that Voldemort was destroyed, and well, that was a little bit of a lie. But a lot of people do, or did, think that. He definitely vanished, and people who said he'd bewitched them came out of trances and stuff, so it really seemed like he lost his powers somehow. But most witches and wizards believe he's still alive, or could be. Hagrid said, "Dunno if he had enough human left in him to die. But Inno's alive now because I saw him last night. He's weak right now, weak enough that a centaur chased him off, but I think he's going to come back soon, and if he does, he's going to come for me. So, I told you that on my birthday last year, Hagrid took me to Diagon Alley to get my school supplies, and we went to get some money out of the bank. But Hagrid went to another vault in the bank. It had a lot higher security, and it was supposed Tarkalanion who tried to break into it. Hagrid had to get special permission from Dumbledore, but the only thing inside was one tiny little parcel, and Hagrid took it. The thing is, I found out later from the newspaper that someone did break into Gringotts later that same day, and they tried to break into that same vault, and they got away alive. No one's ever robbed Gringotts before, and they only didn't this time because Hagrid had already emptied the vault. I should have known, then something was up. Ron even told me everyone gets worried when stuff like that happens because they think Voldemort might be behind it. We asked Hagrid about it, and he wasn't supposed to tell us anything, but he accidentally gave us some clues, and we eventually figured out that the parcel was Nicholas Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. And since the stone can make the elixir of life, Voldemort can use it to get his full power back. Oh, and it's important because the stone's hidden inside Hogwarts. That's the other big secret. At the welcome feast back in September, Dumbledore warned us that the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side was out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. I thought it was a joke, but Percy said it wasn't. He said Dumbledore doesn't make jokes like that, but he didn't know what it was about. But then me, Hermione, Ron, and Neville accidentally wandered in there one time when we got lost, and we had to run for it right away because it turned out there was a giant 3-headed dog in there. It's noticeably like anyone can wander in there by accident if you're worried about that. The door was locked, but Hermione knew the spell to unlock it, and we only went in there because we were sort of out of bed after curfew and we were trying not to get caught. Long story. But there was a giant three-headed dog, and it turned out that it belongs to Hagrid, and its name is Fluffy. And Hermione saw it was standing on a trapdoor, so we knew it was guarding something, and of course it was the Philosopher's Stone, but we didn't know that yet. The next thing that happened was on Halloween, a troll got into the castle. Trolls are kind of like in Lord of the Rings. There's really big and really stupid. But this one was even bigger and stupider than the one in the movie. It was about 12 feet tall, and it stank like a public toilet that was left in the sun too long. Just the smell was horrible enough. Oh, but real trolls don't turn to stone in the sun, though. The troll got in during the Halloween feast. Professor Quirrell ran into the great hall screaming that there was a troll in the dungeon, and then fainted. So Professor Dumbledore sent us all back to our dorms where it was safer. But Hermione had missed dinner. She'd been crying in the toilet all day because, well, it's not important. This was before I was friends with her, but I knew she'd missed dinner and didn't know about the troll, so Ron and I went to go get her. We thought that would still be safe, but even though the troll was supposed to be in the dungeon, it got to that same girl's toilet right before we did and went after Hermione. We tried to draw it away from her, but all we did was make it angry. I didn't know any spells I could use against it, so I climbed up its back, and I ended up shoving my wand up its nose, and that hurt it bad enough that it stopped attacking and just started flailing. And then Ron used Wingardium Leviosa, that's the flying charm, and knocked it out with its own club. It was really impressive. That was the first time he'd ever got that spell right. I probably sound mental right now, climbing up a troll's back and sticking my wand up its nose, and that wasn't even the point of the story. The point is while we were running to the toilet, we saw Snape running up to the third-floor corridor. All the teachers were supposed to be in the dungeons to find the troll, but he wasn't. He tried to steal the Philosopher's Stone, and he did because he was limping all the next week, and one day I happened to overhear him in the staff room talking about getting bitten by Fluffy. He got really angry when he saw I was there, even though it was an accident. That wasn't fun. Oh, and one other thing happened at the welcome feast. I was looking at the teachers up at the high table, and when Snape looked at me, my scar hurt. I mean, I got a bad headache right where my scar is. It only lasted a moment, so I didn't think much of it at the time, but I think it must have been connected with Voldemort, because when I ran into him last night, it happened again, but worse. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand, and it's still been aching off and on all day. It's never done that before, and I can't help thinking it means danger is coming somehow. But Snape must have let the troll in on Halloween as a distraction. Maybe he even arranged for it not to stay in the dungeons as a distraction somehow. And he tried to steal the Philosopher's Stone for Voldemort, but he couldn't get past Fluffy. I guess he and Voldemort must have robbed the bank too, but I don't know how. Probably some kind of dark magic. Snape's done other bad stuff too. At my first Quidditch match, he tried to kill me by cursing my broom to try to throw me off. It was shaking all over the place, and I could barely hold on, and Hermione looked at the teachers and saw Snape staring at me and chanting under his breath, so it must have been him. And then she sneaked over and set his robes on fire to stop him, and then my broom was normal again, and that was when I won the match. This is going to sound stupid, but it really wasn't as bad as it sounds. If I'd fallen, my teammates would have caught me. Anyway, it was Snape who did it. I don't know if he wanted to finish what Voldemort started, or if he was just angry that I overheard him talking about Fluffy. I hope it was the second one, since he didn't try it again. But that was the real reason I was so worried when he decided to referee my second match. I thought he might take another chance to get me. It ended up being fine, though, because Dumbledore came to that match, and Snape Definitella couldn't do anything in front of him. And of course we told someone what Snape did right after the first match. We told Hagrid, but the trouble was he wouldn't believe us. He kept saying Snape would never do something like that, even though all three of us said it. That's me, Hermione, and Ron. And when we told him Snape tried to get past the three-headed dog, that was when he told us it was called Fluffy and Wash's dog, and that it had to do with Nicholas Flamel. But Hestel wouldn't believe us. He just kept saying, "Rubbish. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. And you're meddling in things that don't concern you. You told me I should tell the teachers Snape was being mean to me, but after that, I was scared too. If Hagrid didn't believe me, I didn't think anyone else would. Hagrid's the only adult at school who I'm really close to." That sounded less creepy in my head. I mean in a platonic way. But I was scared if he didn't believe me, the other teachers wouldn't either, and they might let it get back to Snape, and then he'd know I was on to him. Now, later, we learnt that Professor Quirrell knew what Snape was up to, but that's because Snape was threatening him and trying to make him tell him how to get to the Philosopher's Stone. That happened after Mysican Quidditch match. I was just about to go back up to the castle when I saw Snape walking out into the Forbidden Forest. I wondered what he was up to, so I kind of followed him on my broom. He didn't see me, though. He didn't look up, and it's really dark in the forest even in daylight. And I saw he was meeting Quirrell in there, and I listened in from above. I couldn't hear all of it, but I heard him ask Quirrell if he'd figured out how to get past Fluffy yet, and he also asked about Quirrell's bit of hocus-pocus. So I could tell Snape was trying to bully Quirrell into helping him get the stone, and of course, Quirrell's scared of everything, so we thought he'd fold really quick. I'm surprised he held out as long as he did. He only caved this week. Oh, and Snape actually said Philosopher's Stone, so that confirmed what he was after. A few weeks after that, we convinced Hagrid to tell Oswald was protecting the stone, since if he was helping, I reckon the other teachers were, too. He said there were a bunch of them helping. Dumbledore, McGonagall, Flitwick, Sprout, Quirrell and Snape. Snape must have convinced all the other teachers to trust him enough to tell him about their protections on the stone. There's no way Dumbledore would crack like Quirrell did if he didn't want to tell him, so there'd be no point. So I reckon the only things Snape, didn't know were how to get past Fluffy and whatever Quirrell did. Probably some kind of anti-dark force spell, because Snape knows a lot about the dark arts. I guess Snape must not have Eventridto convince Hagrid if he wanted Quirrell to help him get past Fluffy. Maybe he thought Hagrid would suspect him if he tried, or maybe Hagrid is big and strong enough to scare him. Anyway, that meant Quirrell knew what Snape was up to, but that didn't help us. Quirrell was too scared to back us up, and without any real proof, nobody else would believe us. And if we mentioned Quirrell, they might talk to him, and then it would be even more likely to get back to Snape. Plus, by then, we knew a lot of stuff we weren't really supposed to, and we were worried we'd get in trouble for that. I'm pretty sure Quirrell finally caved to Snape on Monday this week. That time it really was a coincidence I found out. I just happened to hear someone crying in a classroom, and I followed it to see if someone needed help, but then I overheard Quirrell saying, "No, no, not again." And then, all right, all right. And then he came out crying, and when I looked in the classroom, someone had just gone out through the other door, and it must have been Snape. Quirrell's scared of everything, but I don't see how anybody else could be threatening him to do something for them. I wasn't going to do anything after that. I thought if Snape became rich and immortal, maybe it wouldn't matter so much. It might even be good for me because maybe he'd leave the school. But then last night I found out he really wants the Philosopher's Stone for Voldemort. So last night, me and Hermione and Neville had detention. I'm sorry about that. It was for getting caught out of bed after curfew, different time. But I promise it was for a good cause that time. I don't think I should say what it was about. Someone might get in trouble who really doesn't deserve it, but that bit wasn't dangerous. That night was really bad, though. McGonagall was spitting mad. She said it was dangerous to roam around at night, especially these days. She didn't explain what she meant about that, but I think it's because of what's been happening to the unicorns. We found out about that in detention. Anyway, detention was last night. Oh, and Draco Malfoy had detention too. That would have been funny, except we were stuck there with him. Our detention was to go into the forbidden forest with Hagrid and help him with his work, and it was at 11 o'clock at night. That's after curfew. Hermione thinks they were trying to scare us straight, but it went really wrong. Hagrid had us tracking an injured unicorn. He said 2 others had been killed recently, and that's not normal. Other animals don't normally go after unicorns, and they're too fast for most of them to catch anyway. This one was hurt really bad. We followed the blood trail for at least an hour before we found it, and it was dead when we did. It was so beautiful and so sad. I've never seen anything like it. You really had to be there. Even dead, it seemed to glow pearly white in the moonlight, and you could almost feel the beauty from it. But just when we found it, it was me and Malfoy and Hagrid's dog Fang who found it. Fang's a normalish size boarhound. But just when we did, we saw this hooded figure come crawling out of the trees, and it started drinking the unicorn's blood. That was Voldemort, but I didn't find out till afterwards. Malfoy and Fang both completely freaked out and ran away, and that was when my head suddenly hurt so bad I fell over, so I couldn't run. Then Voldemort stood up and ran at me, and it was just awful to see him. I could only see the bottom half of his face, but he was bone white and had sharp teeth, and there was silver unicorn blood dribbling down his robes. Unicorn blood isn't red. It almost looks like Quicksilver Mercury. I was hurting so bad I couldn't do anything, but then a centaur charged out from the trees and chased Voldemort away. When I could see straight again, he helped me up and told me his name was Firenze. But then the other centaurs showed up, and they were angry at him. I guess centaurs do a lot of astrology, and they read some kind of horoscope that said Voldemort was going to kill me, and they're not supposed to interfere. But Firenze told them off and gave me a ride back to Hagrid, and he also told me about unicorn blood. He said unicorn blood has healing powers, and it will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death. But killing a unicorn is evil, so you'll be cursed forever if you do it. And I believed him. When I saw Voldemort drinking the blood, I could just feel the evil from him. But if Voldemort gets the elixir of life, it'll undo the curse and restore him to full power, and that would be very bad. Everyone's still scared of him, even though he's been gone for 10 years, and Dumbledore's the only one Voldemort's afraid of. That's good when Dumbledore's here, but he's not always here. He was called away to the Iqua for a long while after the battle in New York. Hermione says maybe the centaurs are wrong, and Professor McGonagall says fortune-telling is a very imprecise branch of magic. But that won't matter if Snape steals the stone. I don't need my horoscope to know Voldemort wants to kill me. So Snape wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone for Voldemort, and Voldemort's waiting in the forest. And all this time, I thought Snape just wanted to get rich. And all that's left stopping Snape is Fluffy, and he might figure out how to get past him at any time, and maybe he's bullying Quirrell into doing that too. And then once he gets it, Voldemort will be able to come and finish me off, and I've barely slept. And I'm half expecting Voldemort to burst in at any moment, and I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry I have to dump all this on you now. But you needed to know. If Voldemort comes back, I'm going to be at the top of his list, or near the top anyway, and you need to be prepared. I know you're a muggle. That sounds wrong to write it that way. But I know you don't have magic, and it's hard for you to even get into the magical world, so there's not really anything you can do right now, and it's probably hard because you have to wait. I know it's hard for me right now. But I thought, we both have money, so maybe we could try to find a way to buy a magical security system this summer. That probably exists, right? I mean, I remember asking Percy about warding against apparition and stuff. There's not enough time left in the school year for Hedwig to make another round trip at her usual speed. I'm sending this on the 7th, so she get back on the 25th at the earliest. So instead, she should stay with you until I come home. If there's an emergency, you can tell her to come back faster, but I don't need her to wear herself out making another really fast flight. I really don't think there's anything else to be done except hope that Snape doesn't make a move until the school year's over. It's still no good telling anyone about Snape. We still don't have any proof. Quirrell's too scared to back us up. And if Snape figures out we're on to him, he'll probably come after me again, or maybe even Voldemort will. I'm sorry this turned out to be such a mess. I just want this year to be over so I don't have to deal with it anymore. Maybe things will be better in America. Love, Harley.